Good afternoon, Mr. Khan.
Hi, Rob.
Has the oil-induced growth boom in the Middle East been good for the Middle East?
That's a very complex question. How many hours do we have? I think one of the things you have to think about when you think about the Middle East and its oil dependency is that there's been an awakening in the past decade, maybe 2 decades really, but it's been more enacted in the past decade, understanding that an oil dependency is not a long-term solution for anything. And so countries like the United Arab Emirates have weaned themselves off the oil as much as possible, where they say it's now down to just a few percent of GDP. Saudi Arabia, of course, which is such a powerful oil producer, is feeling it and is having to rethink its policies. So I don't think that the oil boom has been good for the Middle East in the sense of as a foundation. It's been good to allow them to progress and develop. And as they started to use their oil and gas money more wisely, they managed to build an infrastructure that has helped them take the right steps towards independence from the fuel that they produce.
With the upcoming vote in the United Kingdom regarding the European Union, do you believe growth could have prevented the vote, the referendum?
Growth in particular in the Middle East? Growth in particular in Europe or growth in Britain itself?
Growth in Britain itself.
I think British people, there is still, being British myself, I recognize there's still a bit of an island mentality when it comes to British people. Of course, Britain stuck with the pound sterling instead of joining the single currency. But Britain, I noticed the younger generation has integrated mentally much more into Europe than the older generation. So though there's a little bit of an island mentality, especially among the older generation, I think there's a greater awareness that Europe is a strong path forward. I think many other factors have caused this move towards talking about and voting on moving out of the EU. And that's such things such as immigration. There is economic stress there now. There's for a lot of people, the skewed property markets in cities like London, where much of the property is owned by outsiders, and it's made it very difficult for British people or local people to be able to have any kind of quality of life. So I think there are a number of complex factors. I don't think growth itself would have made any real difference here. I think a lot of it's come from external factors which have multiplied and are creating a complicated equation here. I still think in the long run people will see that really they're part of something new, and the younger generation feels very much it's part of Europe. You can hop on and off trains easily, hop on and off planes easily, and finally I think Brits are getting smart enough to learn other languages. I don't know.
A couple of years ago at the Gallen Symposium, right after the financial crisis, you spoke about growth and how people's values are changing, that after all the consumerism they're trying to find something new. And now with today's topic about growth, do you think people's values have changed since the financial crisis?
I think that what I was referring to is myself and a lot of other people, including a lot of the finalists for the Wings of Excellence at St. Gallen, talk about with optimism about a changing paradigm when it comes to how to regard growth, how to regard what people are working towards. And I think that people are beginning to recognize, the younger generation is beginning to recognize that growth for the sake of growth itself is a very limited prospect, is a very limited future. So I think people are becoming a little wiser to the fact that there is a need to move in a direction that is more inclusive, because they're seeing the separation between the haves and have-nots getting wider. And so I think for a long-term solution, there has to be more equity on the planet, a more equitable distribution of wealth, a more concerned effort to create wider education, wider health care, and a more universal sense of being together, rather than simply one country against another, each individual against another, and trying to make as much money as possible.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Khan.
Thank you.
Thank you.